A rancorous debate over the undocumented. For some, fears of immigrant crime. For others, calls for compassion and sanctuary. It might sound like the United States, but we're talking about Israel. Derek Stoffel has a story from a country that built a wall and already has tough borders and still faces a familiar clash over who belongs. Tonight's dispatch is from Tel Aviv.
They come every morning to this immigration office near Tel Aviv to find out their fate. Inside, Israeli immigration officials are offering some of these African men a stark choice. They can leave Israel, be deported to an undisclosed country in Africa, along with a check for $3,500 and a plane ticket, or stay but be locked up in prison. Muliabrand Misgina is from Eritrea. He's lived in Israel for more than 6 years now.
This says that I have 60 days.
He worries the document he's holding, a notice of deportation, could be his death warrant.
I feel that they are killing me. To deport me to Uganda or Rwanda, it's not less than to kill me.
Israel wants to deport 37,000 African men from Eritrea and Sudan. Women from those countries will not be expelled. The government says the men entered the country illegally, that they're economic migrants, but the Africans say they are seeking asylum. Misgina's home country of Eritrea, according to human rights groups, has one of the most oppressive governments on the planet. That's why the 30-year-old says he fled to avoid a lifetime of service in Eritrea's military.
My future was narrowed and narrowed. I tried to say no, and then they arrest me.
Now, along with his wife, Mesgina has brought his traditions to Israel, including this daily ritual of roasting and preparing Eritrean coffee. But he still has bitter memories of his journey here. A 2-month trek through Egypt's dangerous Sinai desert, where he says 5 of his friends perished from thirst and hunger. But then he arrived at the Israeli border.
That point was the point that can change my life.
For 6 years, Mesgina has been allowed to stay and work in Israel, but now they want him out. The government sees him and tens of thousands of other African men as illegal infiltrators. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says real refugees will remain in Israel, but he adds that the country has no obligation to keep illegal work infiltrators. They will be deported, he says. The government says the migrants are taking jobs away from Israelis, and residents here say they've transformed this neighborhood in South Tel Aviv into a slum, rife with crime. Just minutes after we arrived, officers show up to investigate a stolen mobile phone. While police say the number of burglaries and assaults have gone down in recent years, a majority of Israeli residents say they're often afraid to leave their homes at night.
From rapes and violence and murders and robberies.
May Golan runs a community organization opposed to immigration. She denies the charge from some refugee advocates who say the men are being expelled solely because of the color of their skin.
They can be pink, they can be yellow, they can be white, they can be black. I really don't care. I care about the fact that people who don't belong to this country came here illegally.
But the asylum seekers are fighting to remain in Israel. This is one of several recent demonstrations calling on the Israeli government to let the Eritreans and Sudanese stay. And they're finding support among some Israelis.
It's against our tradition and against our history of Jews who all that for centuries tried to escape from different places and to save their life. And we are now doing it against our culture.
While a recent poll found that more than 2/3 of Jewish Israelis want the migrants deported soon, there is a growing movement supporting the asylum seekers. Some pilots from the national airline El Al say they will refuse to fly those who are expelled back to Africa. And 36 Holocaust survivors wrote an open letter to Prime Minister Netanyahu, published in an Israeli newspaper, saying they cannot comprehend how a Jewish government can expel refugees and asylum seekers to a journey of suffering, torment, and death. One group, inspired by Anne Frank, is urging Israelis to hide asylum seekers in the attics of their homes. And this Israeli stockbroker is taking up the call, saying he'll bring 2 or 3 migrants into his apartment.
They think that us, as Israelis and as Jews, we're obligated. We got some kind of a moral compass, you may say, or something that we just have to do it. I don't know, I just feel like a strong urge to do it.
Mulibran Mezgina hopes that under growing pressure, the government of Israel will stop the deportations.
I beg them to be human beings and to have humanity.
If he is forced to make a choice, Mezgina says he will do whatever he can to avoid deportation, even if that means facing time behind bars in prison. Derek Stoffel, CBC News, Tel Aviv.